All right. Thank you so much, everybody. One more hand for Chairman Tim Scott and Secretary Scott Turner. Thank you all so much. If everyone could take your seats, we've got our next panel right away. So for our next panel, we have our leaders on housing policy in the U.S. House of Representatives. I'd like to introduce Congressman Mike Flood. Congressman Flood was elected in 2022 to represent Nebraska's 1st District. He previously served as the youngest Speaker of the state legislature in Nebraska history. He was elected by his colleagues to serve as the chairman of the Republican Main Street Partnership, and he currently serves as the chairman of the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee on House Financial Services. He's really taken the lead on housing policy in the U.S. House. Please join me in welcoming Representative Michael Flood. And our next panelist is Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz. Congresswoman de la Cruz was elected as the first Hispanic Republican woman to represent the state of Texas, where she serves the Rio Grande Valley. She's one of the busiest members of Congress. In her first term, she passed 6 key pieces of legislation and has been a champion for law enforcement and agriculture. She currently serves as the vice chair of the Subcommittee on Housing and Insurance. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman de la Cruz. I'll take the far seat. All right, so Chairman, we could jump right into it. You've honestly done a lot on housing policy so far as chairman of the subcommittee. I know one of your major initiatives has been support for manufactured and modular housing. It was the second hearing you held for the subcommittee. Could you walk us through why manufactured housing, modular housing is so important to you and your views for those housing and housing policy?
Well, you know, when you look at what a stick-built home costs brand new in my district, it's $425,000, and it varies. I understand that across the country. You've got a lot of people that are working their tails off, and their dream of owning a home doesn't happen at $425,000. The down payment, the monthly payment, 6% mortgage interest, all too much. And the trailers of yesterday are not the manufactured homes of today. And so I got to talking with folks across the country about this, and I actually took a delegation of my constituents to Hagerstown, Maryland, where they have a development of manufactured homes. And if you didn't know that these were manufactured homes, you'd have no idea. You'd think these are stick-built homes. I had to actually get under one of them just to see, if there was a chassis under there, which makes no sense, right, that we're even requiring that. But I looked at these homes and I saw sidewalks, I saw curbs, I saw just a beautiful neighborhood with trees, and I thought this here is also the American dream, and you can do it with manufactured housing. So anything we can do in policy to promote this very resilient, good option for Americans, I think it's in our best interest, and I'd be happy to talk more about some of the bills that we have concerning that coming up here in just a little bit.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. And Congresswoman, one of the biggest actions by Congress so far has been passing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act to help and support working families. Could you talk a little bit about how that's helped your district on people in Texas?
Sure. Well, the One Big Beautiful Bill has been instrumental in districts like mine that is over 80% Hispanic and has a blue-collar, hardworking community. Not only did it give really important tax deductions for hardworking families, but it also did something really important, and that is something called the Low-Income Housing Credit. And what that does is that actually helps our builders with tax credits to make it easier for them to build affordable houses. In my community, the average household income is just at $60,000. $60,000 is really tough to live on for families that tend to be larger. Hispanics have larger families, and so this credit was really important to keep housing prices down and keep down the prices for builders as they're making homes for communities like mine.
And Chairman, I hear you speak often about Columbus, Nebraska, and kind of housing policy and model you've seen in Columbus. Could you tell the audience a little bit about Columbus and how you think it could serve as a model for the country?
So Columbus is probably an hour north and west, mostly west of Omaha. And it has about 25,000 people. It's a growing community. They make almost all the syringes in the United States. They have a lot of manufacturing. They have 800 open jobs, and the number one barrier to filling those jobs is lack of housing. And so housing policy is economic growth policy. You don't get to fill those jobs if you don't have anywhere for those hardworking Americans to live. And so the city of Columbus is using its own money, its own sales tax revenue, its own property tax revenue. They're buying ground, they're putting the storm sewers in, they're building out the streets, they're making these lots available to developers at low cost, and those lots are then sold at a reduced price to people that want to build a home, that can afford a home with some equity on the front end. So, communities are resorting to doing it themselves, which shows you how big of a deal this is. And in housing policy, if we play our cards right, we can eliminate the four horsemen of the housing apocalypse, which are, according to the way I see it, the NEPA reviews, the Davis-Bacon requirements, the Section 3 requirements on hiring folks that are unskilled, and then, of course, the Build America, Buy America stuff that increases the price. When you get those off the table, suddenly the home partnership program looks more attractive. It fits in the capital stack with LIHTC a lot better, and affordable housing developers will have more flexibility and more options.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chairman. And Congresswoman, you represent a very rural area, the Rio Grande Valley. We hear a lot of human stories about the struggle of affording housing, especially for young families. Could you share with us some stories you've heard and why this is such an important issue for you?
Right. So as I mentioned, my district is over 80% Hispanic, hardworking individuals. We are along the border. Hispanics, as I mentioned, tend to have bigger families. That means more mouths to feed, and we got to stretch those dollars even more so in our community. In my community, the builders are being innovative. Recently, what they brought is 3D printing as one of the options. This helps make affordable homes for families. In fact, we just built our first 3D building for Starbucks. And so it's quite interesting to go into the building, and I think it is a blueprint of what affordable housing will look like for communities like mine. So we're excited to see that project and how it endures over the next couple of years. And our builders are looking at just one part of 3D building as how we can get affordable housing for communities like mine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Congresswoman. And Chairman, you mentioned some of the regulatory barriers to building housing. You mentioned some of the burdens that builders face. Looking forward to the committee in the coming term, what do you think are some potential hearings or some actions you could take on some of those regulatory barriers and burdens?
Well, manufactured housing, this is news for today. Congresswoman Houchin, who is on the Energy and Commerce Committee, her and I just introduced a bill today that actually removes the statutory requirement that the Department of Energy prescribe the energy standards for manufactured housing. This has been a barrier. I mean, one of the beautiful things about manufactured homes is that you can deliver them at a lower cost. Well, under the Biden administration, when the Department of Energy gets its mitts on you, you're going to end up with stringent requirements that up the cost of manufactured housing. Congresswoman Houchin's bill and mine will get the Department of Energy out of the manufactured housing space. And I will tell you, I'm also looking at introducing a bill that puts all of the regulatory authority for manufacturing or for manufactured housing in HUD so that we know where it's at. HUD is responsible in a lot of ways for making sure we have affordable housing and homes across America. They should be the sole regulator of this industry. And I think if we can take those two steps this Congress, just as it relates to manufactured housing, I think that's a significant step. John Rose from Tennessee, he wants to get rid of the requirement that there's a chassis in manufactured homes, which is a great step. The only challenge after that is that you've got a lot of states that have different requirements, and so it'll be a state-by-state process. And I think the last thing I'll say is I introduced my version of YIMBY, the Yes in My Backyard Act, where I think if we're going to send federal dollars to all of these municipalities across the nation, we ought to know what kind of position they take on zoning. There's a lot of cities out there that you can't build anything that's multifamily. You can't build in certain areas of town, and the zoning laws are not something we're going to be able or we should be able to change from Washington, but we ought to know if we're sending money to a community that's open to building housing versus a community that has essentially zoned it out of almost anywhere. They shouldn't be working with the federal dollars, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And Congresswoman, you've done a lot to lead on veterans housing and supporting veterans who are looking for affordable housing options. Could you talk a little about your efforts for veterans?
Sure, absolutely. We're so thankful to those brave men and women who have served our country. My grandfather served in World War II in the United States Navy, and my brother served 20 years in the Air Force. So this is a community that is special to me, and I know special to all of you in this room today. That being said, when I spoke with my veterans group and they talked about the importance of ending veteran homelessness, I was shocked to find out that the disability income that they received due to a disability that happened while they were serving our country was actually included as income when they applied for housing. And I thought to myself, well, veterans didn't ask to be disabled. They don't want this income, but they were serving our great country and suffered a disability due to their service. So my team and I worked very hard to make sure that that was changed so that our veterans' disability income would no longer be included as part of the housing application. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow more of our veterans to qualify for housing, thus taking our homeless veterans off the streets and putting them into housing.
Thank you, Congresswoman. That's wonderful. And Chairman, we've had a very busy House Financial Services agenda already so far this year. Could you give the audience just a little sneak preview, some other things you expect the committee overall to do this coming term just to support the market and the housing industry?
Well, as you can tell, both Monica and I are very passionate about housing. I couldn't have been more pleased in the last 2 weeks how President Trump has identified housing as a priority. We've been talking about this. We've been holding hearings. In fact, our chairman, French Hill, has allowed me to have every hearing the first part of this year on the housing affordability issue. And so the Senate, quite honestly, delighted and surprised us that they put out their Road to Housing, which is a bipartisan measure. I can tell you that I've been working in a bipartisan manner with Emmanuel Cleaver, who is the ranking member of our subcommittee, and we are going to most likely mark up a bill later this fall that will put the House and the Senate both on record, hopefully, of what we want to accomplish, with the idea of, if it was up to our chairman, Mr. Hill, having a bill that passes next June. Housing policy for the first time in a long time moving through the system, and it will be done on a bipartisan basis. In fact, the bill that Senator Scott pushed through was very bipartisan. So we're on a very good path right now. I think there's momentum. And hey, at the end of the day, housing is not partisan. Housing is a basic human need. We have a supply issue. We do not have a demand issue. And we're going to navigate a lot of these waters. And on top of this, next year, there's going to be talk of GSE reform. And that will also shape the future of housing policy in America. We have this thing called the 30-year mortgage that we take for granted. We have to remember that there's a lot of countries around the world that's a pipe dream for them. We've figured it out here in the United States. We need to protect it. We need to make sure it's stable. We need to make sure that people can rely on this awesome opportunity to buy a house, and we need to address supply. So, yes, you're going to see housing be a major part of our committee. And, again, the President putting a spotlight on it has supercharged our effort. And now I've got members from different committees in Congress coming up to me asking how they can get involved in housing, which I think is very, very good sign.
And Congresswoman, since coming to Congress, kind of a fun question, what's been the most interesting or unexpected thing about serving in Congress? What surprised you the most?
Well, goodness, that's a loaded question. We better have a round of drinks, right? I'll meet you at happy hour at the bar. You know what? It's been the honor of a lifetime to serve as the Congresswoman of Deep South Texas, and being able to truly make a difference in our community. As a normal small businesswoman who had no political background, you always hear, oh, they don't do anything in D.C., nothing can be done. And when I got here and was able to work with hardworking congressmen like Congressman Flood, who are interested in important topics, who are making changes not only in their community but in America for the positive in America, has been the experience of a lifetime. In my own district, what we've been able to do is something with the 1944 Water Treaty, which was where we were able to literally save the citrus industry, and it's been a honor of a lifetime, many achievements, and I can tell you that a lot can be done up here in DC. We've already proven it in the first 6 months with the Trump White House, and we're going to continue to deliver great results for Americans.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And Chairman, you mentioned Congressman Cleaver. You've mentioned some other members. Who are some of your favorite members of Congress to work with, besides the Congresswoman, obviously?
Well, Chairman Hill, I always say that the people of Little Rock are getting a great bargain for having him represent Arkansas in Congress. His knowledge, his depth, his acumen is amazing. One of my mentors is Tom Cole. He's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. He's an old school House member that believes in the value of the House of Representatives as an institution, which, having been the former Speaker of the Nebraska Unicameral, I buy into that very much. You have to support what you're doing. Other members that I think are just fantastic, obviously, and I could go through a lot. I'm next door neighbors with Erin Houchin from Indiana. I see her come in, like Monica, hit the ground running and just do great things. So I've made really good relationships in Congress. And, I do think this is a tough business, right? Like, I go to schools and I say, who here wants to be in public service? And nobody raises their hand. And I understand why. I see the effect on my family. Who wants to do a job when people are yelling and screaming at you all the time? If not for the relationships that you build with your colleagues, this is a very difficult job. And if you're in it for the right reasons, you're dealing with things that you've never had to deal with before because of the angst and the anger out there. And I hope that as a country, we can get beyond that. And that actually starts with my behavior. It starts with the way I treat people. It starts with the things that I do. And we need to model good behavior for the rest of the nation to deliver for the American people, because finding good people to do these jobs, that's very short supply right now because of the political environment. And I hope that's something that changes, because it's getting harder and harder and harder to talk people into putting their name on the ballot. And as Americans, we all lose. So that's I worry about that a lot.
Of course. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. And so, Congresswoman, what's your big takeaway on housing after the hearings you've had so far, and what are you hoping is the main thing that we could accomplish on housing in this term?
Well, I was just telling Chairman Flood back there as we were waiting, it is so exciting to be part of this committee, and we have seen such great leadership from Chairman Flood and the focus from Chairman Hill on housing. Not only to have a hearing and talk, that's one thing, but to actually do and put in process legislation that will truly make a difference to all Americans. And as Chairman Flood mentioned, having the White House and President Trump say, say this is going to be our focus puts everybody on notice that not only are we going to focus in financial services on housing, but every single committee will bring to the table an idea and a process that will lift all housing up for Americans. So it's an exciting time to be the vice chair of this committee, because we are going to actually put in legislation that will truly make a difference in housing for Americans.
And Chairman, you mentioned the Nebraska State Legislature briefly. What would you say is the biggest difference you felt so far serving in the legislature versus serving here in Congress? And what kind of lessons?
Well, now remember, Nebraska has a nonpartisan unicameral.
Yeah.
It has state senators and a speaker. It doesn't have a House and a Senate, and I was its speaker. Being the speaker of the Nebraska legislature is like herding cats on methamphetamine. Because it depended on what time of day or what the issue was or what the coalition was. You may have a bunch of Omaha senators with a bunch of folks from rural Nebraska against the Lincoln senators. So there is no party discipline in a legislature like Nebraska. There's no whip. There's no conference committee. So you come here and you're definitely part of a conference. You're on a team. The team has goals and you're pulling in the same direction, which, you know, for a state Nebraska size, a unicameral makes sense. We've got 2 million people. I like to think of it as a very effective large city council. When you've got well over 300 million people and you're the world's sole superpower, you have to have a system like we have here to be efficient. But I'm 3 years in, and I told somebody when I got here after 18 months, I think it takes 5 years to be at your full stride. Anybody tells you they've got it figured out after a few months is lying to you. You know, there's still things. If you're doing your job right, it takes 5 years to be at your absolute full stride. And, you know, I'm 3 years in. I'm enjoying it, but I'm still learning. And I look at members like Tom Cole, who's been here 23 years, 24 years. That's the standard of excellence in a body like the House of Representatives. He understands how the pieces fit together. And so, as much as I'd like to say I've got it all figured out, I'm still learning.
Thanks. And Congresswoman, you mentioned serving, you know, now under the Trump administration. What kind of differences have you seen since the Trump administration came in? How has it been a different experience in Congress?
Well, first, I just want to say how impressed I am. 5 years, Chairman Flood. That's pretty good.
I've only been here 3.
I'll tell you what, it is a complicated system, and I think that us serving under Trump 2 is so valuable because it takes time to learn all of the pieces. And so I think that under Trump 1, he learned how the pieces fit. Now he's able to truly put the puzzle together. And I think that's why with a very thin House majority and a very divided Congress, him along with Speaker Johnson have done remarkable work in being able to herd the cattle in to pass significant legislation. And that is evident with the One Big Beautiful Bill that just passed successfully in July, which will positively affect hard-working American families. But that's not the end. That's the beginning. And what we're talking about today is housing. I have no doubt that the pieces of legislation that Chairman Flood will put on in committee and that we will mark up will be put on the House floor, where we will be able to make a great impact on housing in America. And it's really exciting to be part of Trump 2, because I think, as Chairman said, he's getting that opportunity to use what he learned in Trump 1 and actually push through legislation that will truly make a difference.
It's exciting. And so, Chairman, you know, kind of looking forward, what are you most excited about? You're going to go tour and see some of the houses. What are you most excited about seeing here today?
Well, I think it's just amazing how these manufactured homes look like stick-built homes, like you would see a traditional contractor build. You know, it doesn't matter what your income level is. It doesn't matter what your background is. Everybody wants the same thing. They want a house that they're proud of. They want an island in their kitchen. They want bedrooms for their children. They want a mudroom. They want all these things. And, manufactured housing has accelerated way beyond anything that I think its detractors have ever given them credit for. And I challenge those folks, especially zoning administrators, to look at what is on the market today for manufactured housing so that they can see that this too is the American dream, and regulating manufactured homes to the end of town is not right. Those families want to be as close to the park and the convenience store and to the school that everybody else wants to be close to. And we have to embrace this industry. We have to get zoning administrators to see the value, and we need states to come on board and celebrate the fact that, yes, this manufactured home is actually an affordable American dream for somebody that's working way harder than a lot of us at a factory, putting in 55 hours a week, both mom and dad, to put food on the table. They deserve a house too, and this is what they can afford. And by the way, in 10 years, I guarantee they'll be in that next level and the next level after that. People who work hard succeed in America. Let's give them a chance on the front end with a home like we're about to tour.
Fantastic. What a wonderful way to end. Please join me in thanking our panelists, Chairman Michael Flood, Congresswoman Monica De La Cruz. Please join me.